everyone, and welcome back to another Knighted Ones podcast. We are on episode number 23. Can't believe we made it this far, but for some reason you guys put up with us. As a reminder, we are the only podcast that features a former UCF National Champion, a former UCF radio host, and several podcasters shooting the breeze talking UCF sports. And this week, we are super excited. We got some basketball and hoops to talk about, Big 12 basketball, some wins, some losses. We don't like the losses, but we'll talk about it anyway. We've got a little football to talk about, but most importantly, we've been blessed with the presence of someone I got to watch as a student, and now is coming full circle and be back to UCF as our baseball coach. So excited to talk to Coach Wallace. We've all talked about it, whether it be in the media or message boards or on Twitter or everywhere else, how excited we are that he decided to come back to UCF and lead this team. We've seen, a bump in recruiting. Obviously, he's got his recruiting chops from FSU. He did wonders with fielding at Notre Dame, and excited to have him home at UCF. So without further ado, we'll get right to it. I'm going to bring in the team. Let me start off with Trey Neal. Welcome back. Just to be clear, we told you last week he was out for surgery. He wasn't having the surgery. He was participating in someone else's. We had a little fun with that, but he is we told you he was getting his medical degree at UCF while he was a student athlete, and he's putting it to good use helping people. So Trey Neal, for whoever you were helping on the surgical table, thank you for that, assuming they didn't pass on and you did your job right. And glad that you're back, my friend. Thank Absolutely. You.
Episode 23. That's a good number.
There we go. Oh, yeah, that's your number.
Good episode coming right
All
here.
All right. Well, if you could help our DBs get a pick this year, I'd appreciate it. You know what I mean? I'm just saying.
As long as they don't look like the Lions DB yesterday, that's all that matters.
Oh man, I was so upset at that, but we'll get into that later. Ben Stout, welcome back to the show, our very own 7-footer. How are you?
Doing well. What's up, fellas?
Super excited, man. This is a week with juice. I love it when we have our guests on, but Coach Wallace has been somebody I wanted to talk to for a long time, so super excited about that.
Yeah. No doubt.
Let's go ahead and bring back Alan Levin. Welcome back.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Awesome. You seemed really juiced this week. I don't know, man. Super serious. I don't know what's going on with that. Last but not least, but always last, Josh Lazar.
How dare you pull me up last every single week? How dare you? Now, listen, you could have done something really good here. Here's Josh batting cleanup. Here's Josh at the top, bottom of the order. But no, here's Josh. He's just last. Come on, we need a decent type of theme here.
I mean, that's the reality of it. I don't know. I mean, you're right, though. I could have gotten a baseball reference in there. I wasn't thinking. You're right, Josh. But I do have the mute button, so just be careful with that. All right. And, of course, the guest of honor, the person we're all excited to talk with and about UCF baseball, Coach Rich Wallace. Welcome to the show. And thank you so much for taking the time and the busy preseason to come join us this week.
Appreciate you guys having me. That was a entertaining intro on your guys. That was fun.
We try to be. Sometimes we fail. Sometimes it's dad jokes. So this week, I'm glad
that's
we
all
got
fun
it.
to me. So we're good.
Well, I just want to say, I know we talked a little bit before the show, but I want to reiterate this because I think anybody that's listening or watching, this show, we're all excited that you're here. And I know that sounds cliche, but legitimately, to have someone come back, we haven't had an alumni head coach since 1988. So having someone that I got to watch play, had a lot of success back in the day, went and played at coached at various schools, had a lot of success there, recruiting prowess. Everybody's excited about your recruiting. Everybody knows with you being at FSU and, the recruiting that you did in Central Florida. We were all very aware of that, by the way, and excited that we get to bring you home and you get to do it for the black and gold. So, I can honestly say, I think this was a lot of times when we have head coaches that come in, there's some detractors, there's some people that, are saying, oh, this is a great thing. But honestly, I don't think saw anybody say, hey, we're not excited to have Rich Wallace coach this baseball team. So thank you very much. We're excited to have you. And I know at the time we heard you were excited to be here. So let's talk some baseball.
Yeah, very, very excited. Like obviously a long road to get back home, and just excited for this opportunity.
All right, Ben, I know you were dying to ask some questions this week, and apparently Trey saved you in the OR. So can you go ahead and start? Can you start us off here with Coach Wallace?
Yeah, man. I mean, obviously, I echo what the guy says. I mean, like we've been texting back and forth a little bit, Rich, and it's just I texted you when you got the job, and probably one of the million text messages that you got at the time. But it's just we're so excited to have you back, man. It's really cool, especially one of these early 2000s guys like we are, that were in the UCF athletics program at that time. It's just awesome to have you back. And so I guess you don't need to go too far into detail, but just kind of the coaching journey that got you here. Some of your influences. I mean, I'd love to hear about two coaches in particular. But before we get to that, just some of the coaching journey that got you here as head baseball coach of UCF.
Yeah, and honestly, when I was a player, coaching was very far removed from anything I was thinking about. And we got to and I'll never forget, we were on the old practice field back there, and got to my senior year in the spring, and the way Coach Bergman did things was like by the end of it, he expected the upperclassmen to teach the team defense and teach the team offense. And he didn't really do much of the teaching to the new guys. He just let us do it. And I was basically running one of our impromptu meetings. And when I was done, he's like, you ever thought about coaching? I was like, absolutely not. He's like, well, at the end, if you want to, my door's open, come in, we'll talk about it. And we got to the end of it, and I went in there and he convinced me to do it. And I got the benefit of coaching that 04 team here, which was a special team with special players. And I mean, you win 40 something games and you're on the doorstep of winning another regional. Like that'll light a fire like you've never seen. So from that point on, like, I was like, I can't believe that people actually get paid to do this. So this is what I want to do. And then from there, getting a chance to come back as the volunteer coach, which now, thankfully, in our game, we don't have. We can have the 3 paid assistants. Fortunate enough that Coach Bergman gave me a lot of opportunities here that a young coach wouldn't have had. I think I was 23 or 24 years old, and he came to me a Friday night and basically told me I was taking over the offense and I was coaching third base tonight. And that's when we were playing number 1 Rice. Like, for the 23-year-old me to have to go out there and him letting me learn on the job at that point in my career was outstanding. And got a chance to follow Coach Cozart, who recruited me here to UCF, was like a father figure to me. Went to High Point not knowing even what it was, where it was, or any of the history of the program. Like, thinking back now, I should have asked, Coach, where is it? How much are they getting paid? Didn't ask any of those questions. Coach, if they ever won, because the answer would have been no. They never had a winning season in the history of Division I baseball. And to get up there and try to learn how to recruit in a new part of the country, or a team that's never ever won, it was a tough thing that an older me probably might not have done, but it was the best thing that I ever did, going up there and doing that. So those two obviously allowing me to start my coaching career, and then all over the place to Creighton and Omaha. Got to coach with Ed Service, who's isn't a Hall of Fame coach yet, but will be soon enough. Came back to Jacksonville, coached with Chris Hayes there, got back to the state, and then got the opportunity of a lifetime to go to Notre Dame and coach with Link Jarrett, who I think is the best baseball coach in college baseball. So just excited to be back, man.
Yeah, Link Jarrett is one of those names that my nephew plays baseball at VMI, and he's from the North Carolina area. He knows a lot about Link Jarrett. And so he when I mentioned, that he took the job at Florida State, and and that you were going to go with him to him at that time. He was like, wow, that's awesome that he's linked up with him and everything like that. And so, no pun intended, I guess.
I was going to say there's a double link.
There's a good move right there.
Yeah. But yeah, speak a little bit about Link, Jared. Just I've heard you talk about his organization just as a head baseball coach, and just in your more recent, coaching and getting ready for this step of being a head baseball coach of a D1 program and a big conference like this. How did that experience with Link really help you out?
Well, I was fortunate enough for him, like the type of person he is, first and foremost. Like, there's no better man in college baseball. Like, the biggest barometer for that would be the way my kids look at him. I think they might choose him over me if they could. Just the way he brought the family into it, and then how much time we spend away from our kids, allowing the time when it is possible to have them around. He wanted them around. He expected them around. He made them feel part of our baseball team and program. And that part I'll never forget. And I'll always want in our program. Well, I think it helps our guys too. Like, I want them to see us as fathers and husband. And I think that's part of what we're trying to teach these guys as well. So that'll always stick out in my mind. But yes, the organization, the taking so many things that we have to do as a baseball program and getting it down to the most important things every single day, having those things laid out. Everybody knows what to expect, from the equipment manager to the strength coach to the operations guy to all the assistant coaches, and the voice is the same. The mission is the same, and get these 18 to 22-year-olds to put a school, a program, a team ahead of themselves. Easier said than done, but that's the biggest things I learned from Coach Jarrett. Besides, he's the pure baseball skill tactician part of it, like nobody better.
Yeah, you've learned. I mean, honestly, those two names and a few others. I mean, Jay Bergman, going back to the days. We have another podcast too that we do that's more business focused, but a lot of what we talk about is culture and leadership and building people and empowering them. And, there's what I heard from you was building that family atmosphere, building that family culture, making sure they know they're cared for, but at the same time, accountability. And accountability is something that, at times is often overlooked when you're trying to build any type of team, when you're trying to build that family type of atmosphere. So for you, like, I heard you talk a lot about making sure we're drilling the important things. What are the important things for you and a baseball team led by Rich Wallace?
Yeah, I think we try to say that there's some very important things. We don't have a lot of rules, but we do have standards, and that stuff in our building starts before you get into the building. What we're doing on the other side of campus, what we're doing in the community. I want our guys to be looked at as like, okay, the baseball teams here, these think this is going to be run correctly. This is going to be the role models of the people in the community. That's the ultimate goal. Not easier said than done. But I expect them to be elite and at the best of their abilities in everything we do, from the classroom to when we walk in that building, to the way we present ourselves, the way we interact with everybody, all of those things. And the three things that we tell our guys is, don't come to UCF if you're not going to do what you're capable of in the classroom. This is a meaningful degree from an unbelievable institution. You're here to get it. I'm going to make sure you get it. Unless you're playing, you get drafted before you get a chance to finish, but I hope you come back and finish. Don't come here if you don't want to compete for championships every day. And like Trey will tell you, competing for championships doesn't happen when you're actually playing the game. Most of that stuff's done way before that moment even comes. And for us, I want our guys to want to be big leaguers. Like, I want them to come here. I want them to try to work at their level that they need to get so they can become professional baseball players. And if they don't, I want them to feel like they didn't do it because they just weren't good enough, not because they left something they could have done, that we didn't give them something we could have helped them with. Empty the tank, and when it's all said and done, that they're happy with their student-athlete experience here at UCF.
That's amazing. I couldn't have said that better myself. Speaking of that, you named 4 captains recently, right? So you had Kyle Kramer, Andrew Brait, Jack, I can't say this yet. So
Ziska.
I was close. I almost got that. So years of reading like media guides for people's names, right? And Nadja Victor. So you've got 4 guys that you've kind of said, these are the guys that are going to set the standard for this team. Some of the names we know, obviously we know Kyle, we know Nadja, and we know Andrew Brait. What were you looking for when you were trying to set the tone and pick your captains?
Well, and obviously, I should have told you this before, but I let the kids pick them. I let them vote. My only rule is when you vote for captains, you write your name on it. Like if you're gonna vote for somebody, I'm good with it. Put your name on it though. Like no, we're not just throwing names in a hat. Like if that's who you believe the captain is, I'm good with it. Put your name on it. And those 4 guys, when I collected it, if I was going into that, I would have probably guessed that those were the 4 guys. As our staff sat down, I was like, hey guys, for fun, before we get these, let's pick them. What do you think? And we were pretty dead on. And that kind of gives me that we have a decent feel of what's happening in that locker room and at practice. And they picked those 4 guys. Those 4 guys got the majority of the votes. It just happened to work out that it was 2 position players and 2 pitchers. And on the pitching side, Kyle Kramer and Niger, like they go about their business exactly how I would want a UCF baseball player to do it. And the same thing with Brait and Jack Ziska. And I got a chance to coach Jack Ziska before. He was one of our instrumental pieces to our 2022 run at Notre Dame.
Right.
He got a year back and got a chance. He called me. We were already 2 weeks into school and called me, said, Coach, I got my year back. What can you help me? I was like, yeah, I got a place. Let's just see if we can figure this out.
Come on down.
Yeah. And our academic and compliance staff did an unbelievable job getting him into school 1 and caught up and just happy that he's here. And he's led since the first day he's been on campus.
Yeah, I'm always impressed with, and that's why I wanted to talk about the captains there, and in particularly Ziska, because I'm always impressed when someone, I think it says a lot about someone who transfers into a program and then within a short period of time of getting to know the rest of the players, they're named captain, right? And I think that says a lot about Jack and the type of player that he is, but the type of person and leader that he is. And I was real excited when it was announced that he was coming here and transferring here. So that's just a great thing. And then to see he was named one of the captains just kind of like push that home, right?
Yeah, and I mean we're a month into the fall, and some of the guys were calling him Coach Ziska.
Are you gonna be able to beat Jay Bergman here and offer him a coaching position after the season?
I don't know. He's going to have a degree from UCF and 2 degrees from Notre Dame. He probably will make a lot more money than I ever did by the time he's 25. But for him, like we have our own language, and starting in the fall, the only guy that really understood our language was Joe Sheridan, who played for us at Notre Dame. And so I would say things, and you could see some of the position players kind of look at Jack like, "Can you translate that for me?" It's been great, and he's kind of taken hold of that.
So are you bringing that language from Notre Dame to UCF and using it and then modifying it, or?
Yeah, we modified some of it. I've added some things, taken some things out, kind of put my own stamp on the way we do it. Because obviously I know it works, but as you're watching it and you're implementing it, like, okay, I really, really like this. I think I could, kind of change the way I want to do it and kind of tweak it and put it to our own here at UCF.
That's awesome. Yeah. One of the other things too, kind of thinking about, recruiting, and you talked a little bit about recruiting and, the quality of players that we have, that we've seen you bring in and start talking to. And I was just, one of the challenges at UCF before the Big 12 has always been, the guys that we got to sign on or high level players, they always ended up going to the draft before they got on campus, right? So you guys usually baseball, you're recruiting guys way younger than the other sports are, although football is starting to catch up now. How do you handle that balance? And have you, for UCF now with this Big 12 tag, have you seen a difference in whether someone's willing to, stick around or forgo the draft? Obviously, if you're probably a top 5 pick or top 5 round pick, right, or top 10 rounds, it's going to be tough to get them to stay out of high school. But have you run into any of that locally?
Yeah, and I think obviously the Big 12 helps, because when you're assessing this as a player and the people advising the players, if you can play in the Big 12 and you are an all Big 12 player and you're performing at that level, you're going to be a top 5-round pick when it's all said and done. Like that's what the league has proven. That's what at worst it'll be going forward. So that part of it, and we lost guys in our class that we committed right when I got here. A couple different guys because of the way the draft is now being so late. So the draft wasn't until July 9th. They have 2 weeks to sign. School starts on all, like it's really jammed up for us. The draft's a little different than it was when I was playing. You would get taken and then people would kind of figure out the signing bonus. Now this thing's done because of the slot money, the restriction on the teams. Like, it's about making sure the player knows exactly what they want before the draft, and then they take them based on what they've already agreed to sign for. So it's a lot of legwork on the front, and this thing never stops. It never, ever stops. And when you think you're good and you're set, you're probably not. So just prepare for some kind of mess. That's what I've learned over the last 5 or 6 years in this league and the ACC and all the Power 5 leagues. Like, it's never going to be what you think it is. So just be prepared to be unprepared and somehow prepare for that.
Is it a similar? I mean, obviously, it's not going to be the same as like Notre Dame. You got the brand behind that, right? So it's a little bit tougher sell for UCF. But by and large, is it a similar recruiting experience? And with all the Central Florida ties, like, did that make your transition easier to come to UCF and pick up recruiting right away?
Yeah, because I think this recruiting for us obviously starts right here first. So we have to be able to recruit Orlando, and then Central Florida, and then we got to recruit the I-4 quarter, and then we'll move out on from there. But this can be we can recruit at a national level here for baseball. Like, we can go to the Midwest and get the best player. We can go to California. We can get those. We just got to make sure they're the right ones, and they fit what we're trying to do and what we're trying to do system-wise. And everybody that's ever watched me play, if they're old enough to have gray hair like us, and that when I say what I'm looking for the athletic, defensive-minded player, and they're like, well, that doesn't sound like you. I was like, yeah, I don't want me. I need something way better than me that's more useful on the field. And that's people laugh when that happens.
You probably wouldn't mind recruiting a freshman that hit 380 on a really championship team, though, as a freshman, though. You probably wouldn't mind that.
If the other 9 guys were as good as those other 9 guys.
Oh, there we go.
One thing, you stepped right into the system, right? And this is going to be a change for UCF fans, right? This is going to be, a departure from what we've seen the past few years. And there was a lot of bunting involved, a lot of small ball, stolen bases, et cetera. What kinds of things should UCF expect from this team going forward, as far as, not necessarily the details, but just in general, what will they expect to see from a schemes system perspective?
Yeah, I think it's always going to start on the mound. Coach Drew Thomas, since he's been here, has really made some jumps with our guys. So I think we're going to hopefully see a lot of improvement with the returners, from the Vespies to Staglat. Like, you're going to see the strike throwing, the use of the secondary, the use of both sides of the plate, just effective college pitching. I think that it always has to start there. The way we use our bullpen and the options down there, like, that's our staff's not afraid to go to the bullpen in the 4th inning if it's the right matchup, because that's the way the college game is played. I envision our staff kind of being more like, if you got any Tampa Bay Rays fans, like, very similar to that usage, because that's the personnel that we have, right? There's a lot of horses at the back end of the bullpen, so we're going to have to make sure we get them in the right spots and use them when we do. And we have capable starters at the front end, but we got to protect them, and we have some weapons back there. So being able to use them and use them correctly, and that part of it. And then the defense, obviously, I only watched UCF play 2 games last year with my own eyes, but you can look at the numbers, and we have to improve defensively. Now, everybody thinks defensively is fielding percentage. That's part of it. You can't really judge the team purely on fielding percentage. There's a lot that goes into that, from holding runners to being in the right spots. And some of these, like there's hits out there that are hits that probably shouldn't be hits, that don't get charged for errors. And good defenses are really hard to score on. And that's kind of been our goal on the defensive part, is we got to pitch at a higher level and become a defense that is very, very tough to score on. If you go back to some of the stuff that I watched, like we were just a little too easy to score on. Like, and that's any team that doesn't do what you're supposed to. That's where I always go to first. And then what kind of versatility do we have on offense? Like, it's very tough in these types of leagues to be one-dimensional offensively. You're just going to face the type of pitching that if you're just going to sit up there and try to hit some of these guys and hope you're just going to score 6 runs by swinging, it's going to be a long night. I'm not going to sit over there and get our tail handed to us and not try some things and try to create offense different ways. And you're going to end up in places in this league, ask Trey, like it's good, that weather out there. It could be 30 degrees and blowing sideways 20, 45 minutes, it's blowing the other way. It'll stop for 20 minutes and it's blowing right in your face for an hour. Like you never know. You got to figure it out and have some versatility to win all types of games offensively.
Yeah, I don't think people really think about how much the conditions can affect what your approach is mid-game, right? So are you trying to, get a hole shot, or are you swinging for the fences? And, depending on the weather conditions, that can really mess with that, with whether the ball's sailing or whether the wind's going the wrong direction. It's kind of holding it back in and you're hitting warning track shots instead of hitting it out of the ballpark. So
and we can't just sit there and fly out and say, oh, well, wind's blowing. Sorry, guys. Chalk this one up. Yeah,
I love that though, because in the past, a lot of coaches, and this is not to disparage anyone in any way, but a lot of coaches, you don't see those adjustments as much, right? So and let's be honest, fans don't know everything that's going on. They don't know what the injuries are that are on the team. They don't know who's got a nagging injury that's really hurting them from being able to explode the way that they need to be exploding, or all those variety of things that go on, and we shouldn't know, right? But there's certain things, as a fan, when you watch objectively, it's like, why are we doing this, or why are we doing that, or why are we not, swinging more with this guy, or and it's fun for us to know, at least it's good for me to hear that, you're not just hanging your hat on one approach. And I think the good ones, Trey talked about this in football, the difference between, when he was at UCF and when he was at Nebraska was the coach's ability to adjust. And hearing you talk about that, I think that's something, if people aren't picking up on that, they should be really excited about, because that really hasn't been talked about before. So I appreciate you mentioning that. As far as pitching is concerned, one of the things that we've had a challenge with historically the last few years has been our pitchers' arms wearing out towards the end of the season, right? So part of that's rotation. There's some thoughts about whether that's conditioning and how that conditioning is done. I don't know. Are there any specific things that you do that you philosophy-wise that you think about to help those guys make it through the season, keep their velo up, that kind of thing?
Yeah. Well, and I think it starts before we even throw a pitch, right? That starts with Drew Thomas, the pitching coach, Kaylee Shores, our trainer, and Jeremy Fraden, our strength coach, and getting on the same page with the stuff that might happen to these arms before it happens. Like, where are the deficiencies? What do we need to be careful with? How do we need to approach the training on this guy specifically? So that starts way before we even throw a pitch in the fall, and it continues throughout the year. Like, we have daily well checks on these guys just to make sure that they're where they need to be and we're not putting them in harm's way as best as we possibly can. There's things that are unforeseen. When you're throwing a baseball, it's not a natural movement for anyone. Like, your shoulder's not supposed to work that way. I get it, but we know enough to kind of preemptively strike all that, and we try to do our best. And then just making sure that we don't overuse them early so that we can use them in the back end. So part of that is the struggle of, we do have to win now. There's no easing into the college baseball season. That those games early might be the difference between one getting in or hosting or whatever might come with that. Like, you got to balance those two things and the health of the arms. And then recruiting wise, do you have enough depth to actually do that?
Right.
Do you have enough starters where maybe a month in we might be able to skip a start and give a guy a complete week off and give him a recharge. Like that's stuff that we look at. Do you have enough bullpen pieces that you can give guys 2 to 3 days between each outing, or are we going to have to use the same guys twice in a weekend all year long? You're hoping that's not the case.
And how do you feel like coming in? Do you think you had enough arms? And when guys come back from injury, you never know what you're going to get until they get back into the swing of things. Do you feel like you have enough arms for a rotation and be able to rotate the rotation?
We had this discussion last week in the office. Whenever I say we have enough arms, go get 2 more.
I love it.
You never really have enough, but I like our depth on. I mean, there's 6 guys right now fighting for 3 weekend spots, and they all kind of bring it different aspects to what they can and cannot do on the mound and how we can attack hitters with each of them. And then those 4 to 5 guys, depending on who's not in that rotation, who joins those other 4 guys in the bullpen. Those 4 guys that we feel really good about with Niger, Kyle Kramer, Alex Galvan, the transfer from Louisville, and Chase Santala, who's made a huge jump.
Who's made a big jump last year too. So
yeah, he's got a chance.
It's interesting because for those that follow UCF baseball, that's a lot of names that are coming back. You know what I mean? And it's good to have a lot of experience when it comes to pitching rotations, having those folks in, because, when you're playing an entire season, when you're playing at this level, it is a jump. And some of them have had experience at other P5 schools. So being able to bring that level back into what we're doing as well is exciting. And that just being able to handle that pressure and understanding what the stakes are and knowing in what situations, the kind of hitter you're facing and how you're doing that. It's exciting for me to hear that we're getting a lot of those guys back, because you never know. Hitting the same way. We had some really, really solid hitters. Sundean was super exciting last year to watch. I think he's got a lot of I'm excited to see the jump that he makes, because he was exciting last year. He's got he's tall. He's got a lot of power, and just hitting consistently is going to be exciting. Who are some of the hitters that you're excited about as far as guys that can really swing the bat?
Well, I think where we're at right now, where you're looking at Lex Bodecker, I think he hit the home run. The home runs last year were obviously, and you look at his skill set, and he is capable to us as a staff of more than just the home runs. I think he can be a complete offensive player. He can run the bases. He can steal bases. He can drive the baseball. He can hit from line to line. He can be tough to strike out. He can handle the bat. Like, if you like, the perfect offensive player, like he's borderline on that type of player for us and what we're trying to do. And his position versatility. Like there might be games where you see Lex Bodecker start at third and finish at first, and end up in the outfield, and his ability to do that and play all of them well. I mean, that's if you stamp what I want a UCF baseball player to look like, it's Lex Bodecker and how he goes about it. And then some of the transfers, AJ Nessler, good left-handed hitter, transfer from Pitt. I got to see him firsthand. He had a great weekend against us last year when I was in Tallahassee. Jack Ziska, obviously, he's done it at this level before. And then Andrew Brate. Like I think he is a productive offensive player, no matter what league you're in. And his position versatility is there too. And then you have Andrew Estrella, the transfer from Stetson, elite power. He has a very good sense of what he's seeing and deciphering pitching and pitch recognition. Just trying to get him to kind of stay within himself a little bit, because the powers, it's special stuff. So I think we have a chance to have some real length to the lineup, where there shouldn't be too much of a let off as we head on the thing, and some versatility. And Mikey Pluska, the transfer, he was at West Virginia, then Richmond. I mean, this started off the spring pretty hot as far as swinging the bat, but again, like, he can play shortstop. He's kind of gives you that sense of security with a shortstop that you feel can and really play that position.
All right, I'm excited. I don't know about you guys. Ben, you had something there.
No, I mean, obviously with his height and length, Sundean's always been one of my favorite players. And I think one of the things that we've had a few guys, and Ben McCabe in the past is one of them, like just a really high level catcher And Sundean, whenever he's healthy, right? Like ever since he's been here at UCF, he's been a high-level catcher defensively, and of course, he can do some great things offensively as well. And so, I guess a little bit more on him, just as far as is he feeling good, and he's going to be behind the plate often this season, and certainly what you've seen from him overall at the plate as well.
Yeah, he's gifted, like special hand-eye, things you can't teach. Like we can work on that stuff with everybody in that cage, on the field in BP, and it's really hard to get him to the level that Andrew's at. And Sonny's, he's got special hand-eye. He's got arm strength. It's a huge frame. To me, from where I saw him in August to where he is now defensively, Coach Lopez has done an unbelievable job getting him ready for the year. But you said it, and like, we got to be careful keeping him healthy. It's a lot different DHing 40-something games versus catching him and just keeping him fresh, because he is such a big part of this offense. And we got two other capable guys in Danny Neary and Dylan King that can go into any high-level college game and catch, and we're excited about both of them as well to kind of spell Sonny when we need to.
How is that on your pitchers as far as just rotating in and out of catchers? Because I don't know if pitchers tend to get maybe a favorite catcher, somebody that they really want, and so does the rotation of your pitchers kind of affect? If all other things are equal as far as health wise, affect who's starting behind the plate as well.
It could. It depends really. We try to match up the catchers with different arms, so everybody catches everybody, just so if that does happen, if there's an injury or something, we're not sticking somebody back there that hasn't caught him before, because that's a nightmare for me. I've been there, like never seen the guy, the lights are on and you got to handle with stuff you've never seen. So we try to keep a track of that. But I think if you ask our pitchers, they would feel comfortable with any of those three. I think they're excited about all three.
Awesome.
Yeah. From our perspective, I think, having played catcher, I played catcher when I was younger as well. But one thing that I saw with Sundean that he was able to do was really take, even as a freshman, he was able to take wild pitches or things like that and chase those down pretty quickly, which you would not assume for someone that age, being able to do that. So when you're talking about hand-eye coordination on hitting, there's also the hand-eye coordination that goes along with catching someone who's throwing, 80, 90 miles an hour velo. And if it's a wild pitch, able to track that down or at least knock it down so that it doesn't get behind into the backstop. So,
that's the root word of the position, right? Catch, like somehow catch the ball.
Exactly.
Starts there.
It starts there, 100%. All right. One of the things we'd like to talk about with anybody who's been a former student athlete at UCF is we like to talk about those hidden gem stories for when they were a player. And obviously you were. We were talking about a little bit of one earlier on about the facilities that you got to play in. But if you want to provide like just an off the wall or out of the way, something that if you weren't on the team, you wouldn't know this kind of story to share with the team. We've got Noah, he's our student. He's a UCF student, and we try to do a segment called UCF Student Re-Education. Now, this isn't for this segment, but just sharing those stories of history is really great for everyone involved. So do you mind sharing a quick story that jumps out to you? From
my time here?
Yeah.
Oh, man. The safer viewers, go back. And
we are not E for explicit. We're E for everyone, but
man, there's just it was a great time, right? So there's a lot of things. I mean, you can, like we talked about before, like to play your home games away and having to get on a bus and drive to Tinkerfield and play those games and walk into a dilapidated locker room and you got $6 cash and a half a public sub and somehow you win a championship. Like that's the things that I always remember. Like UCF was like, okay, this is what it is. We'll figure out a way to win. And those stories and I'll give you the Coach Bergman stories where we would think he's crazy. But I think it was my first year coaching and this story's on top of my head. Clay Tempner and I just told this story to somebody. And we had a certain, play that we ran on first and third that would allow us to tie the game, or run on third, a type of squeeze. And Clay's coming up to hit, and Clemson goes, this is 04, but we beat Clemson 2 out of 3 up there. And Clay's up to hit, and I'm coaching first. So I come over and I'm listening to Coach talk to him. And Clay's like, Coach, I think this is a good opportunity. I'm going to take this down the line with me. We're going to tie this up. And I'm like, yeah, it's a great idea. And as a coach, I'm thinking, that's awesome. One of your best players wants to roll this down the line here and bunt and tie the game up. And Coach looked at it, and I didn't say a word for like 30 seconds. It might have been 4 minutes. I don't know. It was like I was waiting for him to say something. And he said, Clay, no, this guy's going to try to throw it 100 miles an hour. You're going to hit the first pitch fastball in the corner for a triple, and then we're going to squeeze on the next pitch, and we'll be up by a run. And 2 pitches later, we were up by a run, and that exactly happened. And I was like, that is the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. I don't know if he talked him into it, but like that's the craziness of UCF baseball back then.
I am glad that you had that story in your back pocket, because that is an awesome story right there.
And Ben, Clay, like that's Clay, like he's ultimate team player. Like, yeah, I'll lay this thing down. Yeah, somebody else had a better idea.
So we're not going to do that. You're going to hit a triple.
Yes, exactly.
We've got
just
a plan.
Like you can order one of those. If I had a triple sign, I'd give it all the time.
Exactly. Isn't that just it's an easy thing as a coach, just to tell him, yeah, go ahead, go out there and hit a triple, man. He does it.
Yes.
Unbelievable. Like triples, I feel like are even harder to come by than home runs. Like, so the fact that even happened is crazy.
Yeah, but if you were asked Coach Bergman, that was his favorite thing, was a triple. He never he loved triples. He never told us why. He just was.
I imagine it's just because you got to hustle on a triple. I don't care how hard you hit it.
Yeah, and he coached third base, and you get into it with the waving probably.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Well, I can tell you, to Ben's point too, warning track shots, it gives someone usually a lot of time to get back there and catch it. So, those triples they're hard to come by. But yeah, Coach, anything that you want to share? Now, we've had some conversations offline. Hopefully we'll continue those. But anything you want to share with the audience to, tell them, why they should come out and watch this team and watch you play? Because obviously a lot of people are excited. We've sold out the box seats, which is exciting. But anything you kind of want to share about what this team's going to be this year and why UCF fans should come out and watch?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think these guys, and obviously to this point, they've put in the work. I feel like this team's on a mission. Like we talked about honoring the past, and for our group, we talk about that wall in our tradition room with everybody's name. It's been drafted. And we talk, you guys, we got to honor the past. Well, to me, to honor those guys, it's getting, you got to win, and you got to win it in a fashion that presents a product on the field that our alumni, that the city of Orlando, our school, that we can be proud of, and the way we go about it. And we kept it as simple as like, when our games are done and people watch you play, do they think that game meant something to you? Like, does baseball, does UCF, does our program mean something to you? And does it show in your play? And I'm looking forward to seeing our guys start that process and to do it against the teams that are coming into Johnny Atlanta Park this year. Like, this is the best schedule we've ever played. There's not a team on our schedule that doesn't think they're going to play in the NCAA tournament, from Bryant to Samford to the team in Tampa to any of the midweek stuff that we have going forward on that, and anybody in our league. And there's a handful of teams in our league that sat down the first day and they got a national championship on their mind, and we have to do everything we can at that level. And that's what I'm excited to get this team to perform at that level and watch them kind of take a hold of this thing themselves.
Well, I feel the passion, and obviously you over the years continue to follow the program, whether it be any of our programs, and you're a UCF fan as much as the rest of us. So not only are you good at what you do, but you're one of us. You know what I mean? So excited about that, and what showed that to me and proved it to me is that other team. We like to call them the directionally challenged team in West Central Florida, or the Cows. So you can use either one. We move periodically if someone screws that up, but we're generally pretty good.
Yeah, I'll keep it politically correct at that right there.
There we go.
So Trey, that pick in the end zone, it was in the conference championship game. That was the first time I lost sight of my oldest child. She was sitting next to me in that game, and somebody picked her up, and she got moved around the stadium. She still talks about that.
Oh my
Appreciate
God!
that.
Wow.
Pictures of it and everything.
Listen, you guys, I'm in Miami right now. If you guys y'all come down here in a couple of weeks, I can crank out a little bit of 95 if you need me to midweek.
Well, like I said, if we have enough pitching, we got to get 2 more. You're the other.
Let me know. I looked up when you're playing time, and one of the guys that was your coach was Coach Frady, Coach Greg Frady.
Yes, yeah.
It's a small world. I played with his son. When I was playing growing up on travel ball, and he was like, "Man, you keep developing. You'll be able to play at Georgia." He was coaching at Georgia State at the time. He's like, "You can go play at Georgia State." And of course, as a little kid, I'm like, "Oh wow, I can go play, college baseball." It's
Coach
a small
world. A heck of a recruiter, man. Heck of a recruiter.
So yeah. If you listen,
he's a professional pickleball player now.
Really?
So yes.
Oh wow.
Oh.
Listen,
there you go. Now you pique my interest.
If you need me midweek on February 21st, I'm going to be there anyway. I wear XL jersey, so if you need me, I'm ready. If not, I'll be in the stand.
Can't wait, Trey.
Well, I probably wear a small jersey, and my arm. I don't think I could throw a 95 velo. But Trey, his baseball, like that was his first love actually before football, and he talks about it all the time, which is funny. I don't know if he's a better baseball player.
I got to stretch it out a little bit now, but I can crank it out.
Are you getting old on us, Trey? Is that what's happening right now?
No, listen. I don't use these muscles anymore. I don't have to throw. I don't throw anything. I just that's it. I just do a little bit of bench. That's it.
All right. Well, Coach Wallace, appreciate it. We talked about 15, 20 minutes. We're into 45, and I could talk to you all night. I'll hopefully see you at the John at some point. Obviously you're going to be doing your coaching duties, but would love to just, say hi. And we really appreciate, you coming on tonight. For me. Again, I told you this is full circle for me. I got to see you as a player. I was on campus when you were playing, got to celebrate the success that you guys had. And, get to watch you move from playing in the A-Sun, I think, right? At that time, it was the A-Sun.
Played in the Trans-American and the Atlantic Sun.
Yeah, there you go. So going from the Trans-American and the A-Sun, going from that all the way through to coming back and Big 12 baseball and leading this team. For me, it's a joy. And we just appreciate you stopping by and giving us some of your time. We'll continue to follow on and maybe catch up with you a little later on in the season if you're open to it.
Sounds like a plan, guys. I appreciate it, and thanks for all you guys do for UCF.
Absolutely. I appreciate you.
Thanks a lot, Coach.
Good luck this season.
Appreciate you guys. See you at the park.
Wow. That's all I'm going to say about that, guys. Coach, actually, we kind of paused the podcast and hung out a little while longer, just talking baseballs and all other sports. He follows it and has been following it for a very long time. And what I'll say about, Coach Wallace is, number one, he's a guy. He's a guy you want to go have beers with. He knows his stuff. He's really, really good at his craft, and I'm excited to have him at UCF baseball. So, and lead that team. And I say lead because he's not just managing the baseball team. What he was talking about was leadership and developing leaders. And I think you heard us talk about this during football season, is making sure you're developing young men to be leaders of the team. And obviously, Coach Bergman instilled that in him, and he's taking that forward into the team now. So I'm excited to see what they do. I was excited about the season anyway. I said excited probably 75 times during this podcast because he was, leading the team, and I know he's really good at what he does. But now, even more so excited based on the conversation we had off air and on air. So thank you, Coach. And with that being said, let's go ahead and pivot. There it is. Ben, are you going to give us like a double thumbs up or something for that one? I think it deserves it.
I was going to.
There it is. There it is. I was waiting on that.
I was.
For those of you, you only got a single like on that one. For those of you watching and not listening, Ben is doing the double thumbs up with the fireworks in the background. So, or he's trying to, and it worked once.
It worked on cue the first time. So
yeah, exactly.
Take that and run with it.
Well,
but yeah, I agree with you, man. Wally is the man, dude. I'm so pumped for this baseball season. I think we're really going to have, much like we've seen with a lot of our sports, but just really going to have a great debut season in the Big 12, and I'm glad he's leading us.
Yeah, me too. All right, let's go ahead and do that pivot to the hoops and talk a little bit about Text Talk. So you can pick either game because I had a lot to say during the Cincinnati game. Some of it I'm probably proud of, some of it I'm probably not. But that I was in fan mode. So why don't you guys pick two of your favorite quotes from our either game for the Text Talk for Hoops this week? Josh, do you have one?
I do.
All right. Well, hold on to that. You always go last. Alan, did you have anything that you could use?
Yeah, I had. It's kind of what we were talking about off air with Coach Wallace, but we were talking about. Someone said this is a real league with real players. Said Gus probably, which is pretty funny because that does sound exactly like. That's a standard Gus Malzahn quote right there that has been repeated, I think, every season, every off season so far. And then Roger, you had said, which is really interesting in our league, is that our net doesn't get us hurt as much when we lose, which makes it fun. Don't have to win every game to make to the tourney, which is so true. I mean, it is kind of nice or reassuring to know that, you can have a couple of quality losses and still be okay. Where in the American, I mean, you lose a couple games and you're kind of SOL. So it's good to have that going for us, and we can get a couple big wins and jump up the net even more. Yeah,
and I'll say, Nobra, you don't have to edit SOL. We'll allow that. That's E. That's not explicit. That's E for everyone. Unfortunately, last week, Alan dropped a couple. Ben, did you have anything that you wanted to bring in from Text Talk this week?
I don't have one this week, guys. Sorry, but I will elaborate on what Alan just said. I mean, there is 10 Big 12 teams in the top 50 in the net right now. That is nuts. We've beaten 3 of them, which is great. But we've beaten 2 of them. Excuse me, Kansas and Texas. So that's 10 of the top 50 in the net is an insane league, and we've already seen the teams that are not in that top 50. I think all have a win against teams that are in there. So, I mean, it's just top to bottom. Anybody can get surprised in this conference. And so yeah, I mean, you perform, you have a chance of being in the big dance. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Quadrant 1 games, that's the key there. And we have a lot of quadrant 1 opportunities in this league. Trey, did you have anything for this week?
Yeah, mine was, y'all were talking about West Virginia. Josh said, West Virginia has a losing record. West Virginia has not won a game on the road all year. I'm going to the game. It's not me. I mean, again, just the running joke has been, every game Josh goes to, we lose the game.
Yeah.
But we always blame him. So that was just, I always, my Text Talks, I just like to laugh most of the time. And it feels so much better, not stressing about football. I just look at you guys' Text Talks and I just laugh the whole time. So it's pretty funny.
Yeah, some of it unfortunately is not PG, so we can't share it all on here, but it's usually funny. And that's from someone who usually slides in 2 dad jokes per episode. Josh, what did you have? Last but not least, but always last. Josh Lazar.
Yeah. How dare you? We have 2 things. So one of those was kind of like that. It was at the West Virginia game. I was going to talk about that too. But this actually kind of worked more on the Cincinnati game. The Cincinnati game, I talked about our ability to make 12-point deficits into leads. And that would be really good if we can continue to do that for the next couple of months. And
for the Cincinnati game, we took a 12-point lead and turned it into a deficit.
We didn't do that in the first half. And to be honest, as we're recording live now, Texas is doing the same to Houston, too, taking about a 12-point lead and turning into a 12-point deficit, turning into a lead. So I think that is really talks to the depth, and that Cincinnati, we'll talk about that later, but in the text talk I was talking about that earlier on in the game. In West Virginia, it was all about, we had a lead, we did all the text was about, we had a lead, we did all the work in the first half. I'd like it to be less close than it kind of feels now, but we did what we needed to win. It's okay if we're a little sloppy at the end. I don't like seeing it, but West Virginia, there was no time in that game I was like, yeah, we're going to lose this. Thankfully, because I was done. I was done going to games and not seeing us win. And I only can go to a few. Listen, audience, I will not be at the next 2 games. So that's all.
That's good because they're against ranked opponents. So I'm excited about
it's up to them now.
No joke.
All right. So as we celebrate Josh's non-attendance, let's go ahead and talk about the games and kind of break them down. So obviously the first one, UCF beats West Virginia 72-59. Did not do that in football at home, but got to do that in hoops this year. Unfortunately, one of the things that did happen during that game is we lost Shamari Allen. We kind of referenced that earlier. And it's funny because Coach Wallace even brought that up off air and how important he is, and he's excited to get him back because we all see there it is. So Josh made the ticker. It says this just in: UCF will win the next 2 games without Josh's attendance. So agree.
I would love it. Love nothing more.
Man, would that be awesome?
So going back to what we were talking about, though, like losing Shamari Allen, I mean, that was huge. He rolled his ankle. For those of you, I'm sure everybody who's listening to this knows what happened now. As we mentioned earlier, it's not as bad, according to Johnny Dawkins, as they initially thought. They took him back, did x-rays right away. He is in a boot. And unfortunately, we lost him. He's one of those guys that comes off the bench, provides energy, provides a spark when we need it. If things are kind of at a lull, he can take over a game offensively, and he can also make a difference defensively, as we saw against Texas and many other games. With a time, great timing for a turnover and then turning that into points. So we'll be excited to get him back. And then the other part about it, which we saw in the Cincy game, is it gives us fouls. What I mean by that is this season, which I love, is we've bodied guys, right? We've bodied teams and we've been aggressive. The Big 12 refs, for the most part, have let us hand check and do a bunch of other things that we can do to have good defensive performances. And, when you have 3 guys that can handle the rock, it really helps because, if DJ's having an off night or he's constantly getting trapped, then you can give it to Shamari Allen and he can run the point if you need him to. So that's something we're losing because we can be more aggressive at, in the backcourt, if we have Shamari Allen playing on the game. Although he's consistently been good offensively, he's a bigger loss defensively for us. He's quick. He generates turnovers, and he's pretty solid with handling the rock and doesn't commit a lot of turnovers. So that's a big deal. Sellers kind of got his groove back in this game. 18 points. Diallo also had a whale of a game. So he had 14 points in this game as well. Again,
12 rebounds.
12. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Again, 12 rebounds. And, the big thing we have is, you hear people talk about in these interviews and, even opposing coaches, they're athletic or they're blah, blah, blah. You keep hearing that. That's because we have 3 bigs that can really play. And we talk about Diallo, we talk about CJ, right? But a lot of people miss number 5, and he's someone in the paint that can be an enforcer for you. Now, his biggest issue, and he does well on the boards, his biggest issue is he tends to get into foul trouble. So if you lose someone like Diallo, then you're down to 1-5, one true five, and that five can't be the enforcer when that happens. So, that was a big loss in the Cincinnati game. But Diallo has really been coming into his own offensively and defensively for us. UCF shot 84% from the free throw line. We've actually been bumping that free throw percentage up. You've heard the players all say, hey, we're spending more time, shooting free throws, and those are free points that can give you leads. Because if I'm the opposing team and trying to catch up, what I'm going to do, foul and put you at the foul line. Because if you're shooting well from the floor, and we can put you at the free throw line, and you're shooting 50 to 60%, that's a win for us, and it stops the time. So from a possession standpoint, it gives you more time to go back and score. And those are the little details people don't think about. And just on the glass, out rebounded West Virginia 45 to 34, held them to 36% shooting. They got a little hot later, especially with the 3-point shot. And that's kind of what they're known for. But the guys came out with good intensity defensively right out the gate and really held them. And they just didn't have the athletes. I mean, if you watched how we played versus what West Virginia played, they were still missing their star center. He was out this game as well. They just didn't have the size advantage that we did. And the difference in this year's team, to me, when it comes to length and size, is the fact that we have guys that are athletic enough that they can get up and down the floor. We don't have a Taco situation. Taco got better. McBride, took forever. So a lot of times he couldn't stay on one side of the floor, and he'd have to go back into defense earlier than the rest of the team to make sure he was there when we got into our half court game. So these guys, as far as pace is concerned, we've had depth to be able to rotate, to make sure we have fresh bodies in there. And then the athleticism of our bigs, that's been really the difference for us this year. And, when someone like Diallo goes out, and has only played 5 minutes, it's really, really tough and changes a lot of the things that you do. All right, gentlemen, West Virginia, what are your guys' takes?
I think, you said a lot there, and I'll definitely touch on some of it. That's all good. It was a good recap. I agree with you. Diallo had another great game. We haven't mentioned yet. He had 4 blocks in that game. That's huge. He was just very intimidating down low. We held him only 24 points in the first half. This is just one of those games that we went on a run in the beginning and just kind of like closed the door on him in the first half. They did go on another run. West Virginia went on a run in the second half, kind of like midway through, like 12 minutes left in the game. That lasted about 5 minutes, and then we just kind of coasted to the win. They, both teams scored 35 points in the second half, so it was kind of an even half from a scoring standpoint. But it was one of those games, the first game probably in the Big 12, win or loss, that we were able to, and really first game in a while, that we were able to just kind of be on cruise control in the second half and just kind of know that the game was at hand, and we were playing really well because of it. And you mentioned Shamari Allen. It's a big loss. He's one of those guys that just kind of does all the little things. It doesn't always show up in the stat sheet. Even the game that he went out, he played 29 minutes, only had 2 points. He had 5 assists. He had 4 steals. That's huge. But these aren't stat stuffing numbers. He had a couple blocks. He kind of fills up a little bit in each category. So certainly that that shows his versatility and athleticism. But he's not somebody who just stands out and wows you from a statistical standpoint. He just does all the little things that help us win games. And that's why it's an important injury, and hopefully we can get him back sooner rather than later, because Shamari Allen is a big reason why we're in this position in the Big 12 play so far, where we have we have performed probably better than a lot of teams expected at this point, 7 games into the conference slate, to already have 3 wins. It's definitely one of those things that we need him back as a big piece in our backcourt. So that was the main thing in the West Virginia game. I don't know if you guys have anything else there.
Yeah, but just being at the game, it felt like that first half was overpowering. They even tried to come back a little bit, but we were matching pretty much everything they were doing. And to Roger's point, we were bodying them. We were taller than them. We were the better team. And like you said, Ben, we kind of in the second half, it was like, oh, come on. But that was even before Shamari went down. And right. I'm like, okay, come on, drive. Let's get to the free throw line. And it just wasn't happening as often. And that's why on the text I was like, listen, we did all the work in the first half, but I'd like to see something a little like I'd love to get like Pooh out in a Big 12 game, right? And we only have one other shot. It was going to be Oklahoma State based.
Out of context conversation there. If we turn that into a short, that would be hilarious. Just saying.
Yes, but but the fans know. The fans know. We mock us out. We want to get all of the starters have been the people who haven't been starting, right? Or people not off the bench out. And there's only a couple of games of Big 12 play we're going to be able to do that. But we couldn't do that. And I'll tell you, when Shamari went down and he was being quickly, moved off the court with not putting any weight on that leg down, I even said, I think in the chat, I really hope that is preventative and they just want to not touch anything. It's a POOH, sir, Noah, for those who are watching.
I know.
POH. But yeah, it looked bad. Like, so I've played not semi-pro as Roger or Ben, way further than me, but I've played enough basketball at the Y to had a bunch of black nails and roll my ankle once or twice. And I've been at the point where like I couldn't walk around, rolled my ankle, and it took a little while to come out. But I've never been at the point where I could put 0% weight on it. So I was like, whoa. And it's great to hear it isn't as bad as it was. So that's West Virginia was a pretty good time to be there. And I will tell you, the stands, I know we're going to get a lot of people in the stands from our opponents because, they haven't watched a UCF game versus their team at home, right? But if you're talking about this is a real conference with real athletes, this is a real conference with real fans too. They are really coming out over and over and over again. So I think that was great to see too. They tried to get up and chippy and loud, and we shut them down pretty much every time.
Yep. So the big thing for me too, kind of looking at this, assist to turnovers 15-11, right? So only 11 turnovers this game. And we got 18 points off of turnovers to West Virginia's 5. So that shows you, how big of a difference. Like I said, you're going to win a lot of games if you have less than 15 turnovers and if you have more assists than turnovers. We were moving the ball effectively, finding the open shot. And, it translated to a lead of 21 points at one point, 21 points. So super excited about this game. This was, a lot of fun to watch. And it was West Virginia, which is, a known Big 12 quantity. Again, it's not the same West Virginia as years past, but still a good team. It's still Big 12 basketball and a fun win, which is exciting. And I know in the arena, there were a lot of West Virginia fans that were talking a lot of smack, and it's always nice to let them know they're in our house. So,
it's also nice. It's also nice just to. I mean, I know we talked a lot about this during the football season, but it's just nice to beat those. I mean, to your point, Roger. I mean, to beat those legacy Big 12 teams. It just feels good. I don't really care what their record is this season, or because they beat Kansas, right? I mean, they've beaten some big name schools already, even though their record overall isn't as impressive as the rest of the Big 12, but they're still West Virginia, right? And so being able to beat them, but not only beat them, but like from the jump ball, like it was evident that we were the more talented, more physical team, and we performed and played that way. And, I know we want to transition into the Cincinnati game. It was just kind of like a tale of two games there, especially with the performance that we saw from our bigs in the West Virginia game. And unfortunately, we honestly weren't able to get anything out of our bigs in the Cincinnati game due to either one of them being out and the other two, our fives, being out due to fouling out. So I mean, it was just kind of a tale of two games from a big man standpoint, where we were able to really kind of be physical and impose our will, which is how we got in all three of our Big 12 wins, in my opinion. Where we kind of beat up opponents, where we couldn't do that, and we in a game that in Cincinnati that we know is going to be a physical game, no matter who's on the court or no matter what Cincinnati team we're playing. They didn't have their big man as well, but we know it's going to be a physical contest. And unfortunately, in the second half of the Cincinnati game, we weren't able to kind of stack up to that, and it kind of wore us out.
Well, so since we're starting to talk about the Cincy game, let's talk about that a little bit. To your point, Ben, honestly, at one point we were out 4 starters, right? You had CJ that was out, Shamari that was out. You've got Diallo that went out very quickly with only 5 minutes of time on the floor.
0.6 minutes of time. It was just rough.
Yeah, it was rough. And you saw that in the halves, right? And then part of it was, I mean, honestly, at one point, I think it was something like 13 or 15 to 0 as far as fouls that were being called. So 15, and I think it was 15 in favor of Cincinnati, and then 0 for us. Now, part of that was us piddling around. And one of the things I was talking about in the text talk was I was so frustrated. I know we were trying to burn clock because we had a lead, but you get to the top of the key with 20 seconds left, and then you play around at the top of the key for 10 seconds, and then you've got 10 seconds to try to make something happen. And then there were a lot of mistakes I was watching out there. There were times, one of the things I mentioned was I think it was Chi-Chi that was at the top of the key, had the ball. He was calling everybody to space the floor. And he was telling everybody and using his arms to, space the floor, because he was going to go in, which is the right approach, right? Because they were playing a zone. So they were trying to separate, give you enough space so you can make a run at the rim and then either pick up a foul or score. And DJ just walked right up to him after he did that and tried to get the ball. And Chi-Chi was like, "Don't move." And there was like 9 seconds left. And so it was just a lot of little mistakes that I saw like that were just not smart basketball plays. And I do want to say this to those that don't know. DJ did lose his grandpa that Monday. So I'm sure, he had a very off game for who he's been this season. So I'm sure that was in his mind as well. He was very close. He lived with him till he was the age of 21. He said in his interview, so that was a big blow for him. But again, when it came down to looking at the game, the first half, we did all the things right. We had our players in place. We were moving the ball. We were able to out rebound them on the glass. And then in the second half, we were not in position at all. And offensively, honestly, I don't know what we were doing. We were not, if you've got a zone that you're playing against like that, what you want to get to is 10 to 14 feet, either on a pass so someone can go pass it in to someone who can try to drive the paint, or spot up a shot at the 10 to 14 foot mark to kind of break that, because there's a soft spot. Think of it like zone coverage in football. There's a soft spot there that you can use to do that. And if you've got a zone, you've got 3 players in at the arc, right? That means there's only 2 people defending the paint. So you've got to get it into that 10 to 14 feet through a pass and either take a shot from that 10 to 14 feet or, try to drive the paint and get a foul. And we weren't doing that. We weren't part of, the foul calls were the foul calls being what they were, but part of it was us not driving the paint and forcing them. So, that was the frustrating thing for me watching that game. And it just felt like we never, after we took coming out of like, I don't know, 15 minutes left, the energy just kind of got zapped out of the whole team, and we weren't doing anything to change the narrative. And I was surprised because we called a couple of timely timeouts. I don't know what was going on or what was being said by Coach Dawkins to the team, but I didn't see any changes in how they were playing. And that was, call the timeouts, that's fine, but make sure you're drawing up a way to beat that defense if you're going to do that. So, it was tough. Sellers, he still had 19 points in that game, but most of them were the first half. I think we scored something like, was it 13, 15 points in the second half?
I think it's 15. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was not good.
It was horrible. It was horrible to watch.
18. Yeah. But it was horrible. It was awful. I think one of the things too, though, that, and again, I know I kind of talked about it just before, but some of our shooting deficiencies, especially when we go through long stretches where we're just not shooting the ball well, right? Like, they've been able to be covered up by really two things. One thing that we talk about a lot, and that's just our defensive schemes, our ability to create turnovers, because those are going to get us out into transition, and they're going to help us like kind of get out of any type of shooting woes that we have because we're scoring points in the paint because we're out in transition. So that's one that's kind of more obvious. The second one is what I touched on a few minutes ago is like, I think a lot of our shooting deficiencies are runs in the game where we're just not shooting the ball well. They've been covered up because we've been able to get offensive rebounds, and one of the biggest guys to do that has been Diallo. And to have him foul out the game with only 6 minutes of play, I think it did hurt us. And because you got a guy that CJ Walker is not even playing, and so like you're not getting any offensive rebounds. We wound up getting 12 this game, which isn't terrible. But I think, again, a lot of that happened in the first half. A lot of those second chance points happened in the first half. And so we weren't able to really recover from that standpoint. I mean, Omar Payne, he kind of came in there and clean up, and, he's a guy that started most of the games in the non-conference. Certainly hasn't been put on the back burner, but Diallo's just been kind of the main guy ever since that Kansas game, rightfully so. And I think that he just kind of got caught up in the same thing when he came in. He just, they were attacking the paint, and he was, whether it was the right call or not, he got a five quick fouls called on him. And then all of a sudden you're like, man, we don't have any size anymore against a physical team. And it
CJ would have played that 5 position last year. Right. So last year he was playing a lot of 5. If we had CJ, you could have dropped him there in the 5. Yeah. And it certainly would have helped with our rebounding and defensive rebounding. Yeah. And we didn't have him to do that.
It just seemed like a perfect storm of just missing that size component that we rely on. And then all of a sudden, you go back and you say, we don't have Shamari Allen either. We don't have our best defender in the backcourt. When you talked about fouls, and I agree with you when you're talking about like fouls to give with Shamari Allen, but like the other thing that Diallo provides, being the blocks per game leader in the Big 12. I mean, the other thing that he provides is something that Taco Fall provided for us in those great teams in the late, the 2018, 2019 teams. I mean, he provided the ability of the guards to push up on their man and create a lot of pressure, because if they have the confidence where they can guard the ball, especially very tight, because if their man gets by them, then they have that backstop of Diallo that is going to, change shots, block shots, all of that. That was the reason why that team in the 2018, 2019 was so effective defensively, is because the guards could pressure the ball with the utmost effort because they knew they had Taco behind them. And I honestly think that as this season has gone on, our guards have gotten better and better at on-ball defending because of Diallo and just how well he's played on defense as well, on the inside. And so when you don't have that in the second half of this game, you really didn't have it for much of the first half, but you had guys like Marcellus Avery and Jalen Sellers just kind of going off on the offensive end. I mean, Marcellus Avery hit 3 straight threes, in the first 10 minutes of the game, and it was just like he couldn't miss. And I think that Cincinnati got like demoralized about that, but then they collected themselves in the second half. They stayed aggressive, and unfortunately, we didn't. And it just kind of fell apart from an offensive standpoint.
Was it we didn't or we couldn't? Because that's
maybe we couldn't. Yeah, maybe that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe we couldn't.
And it's forget Cincinnati. Let's forget that part of it. If I'm going to take a little bit of the other side of this, we basically don't have 4 of our starting people, Diallo, getting fouled out. We are on the road. And I get some choppy again. I guess I'll be a quick mechanic. I have nothing plugged in, so I don't know.
Well, that's okay. Like, to your to everyone's point here, I think, the challenge here is we didn't have a roster.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we didn't have the depth. And that was tough. DJ, I think I said this during our text thread, was after the first half is like, we need to pick it up in scoring in other ways, because we can't rely on the 3-point shot to take us in to the next to the second half, right? And that went away. So that was tough. That was tough to overcome. It was hard to watch, but I don't understand why we didn't drive the paint more or try to find a way to drive the paint more when we were in that situation. It was almost like we didn't think that they would come back, especially for in between like the 15th minute and like the 12th or 13th, because we'd already survived one run. They went on a run. We were up 12. They got it down to 6. Then we went back up 12, so it almost felt like, I don't know, the energy was just off. And I don't know if it was a combination of having all those people out or what, but they just didn't feel like they had the confidence to be able to do that. And that's a moment where Johnny Dawkins has to take a step forward and say, okay, we know this is not happening, guys. No matter what you do, get it to the 12 or 14 foot mark, whether you pass and pop or whether you pass and drive the paint, because if anything, it gets it. And we got, I can't remember the kid on Cincinnati's team that was killing us, that was really, really physical, and then ended up fouling out. Once we started driving the paint, we got him to foul out. And he was one of them that carried.
It was Newman. Newman the third. One of their bigger guys, but he actually wound up not fouling out for some reason. He had 4 fouls, but or at least it said that in the stat sheet. But yeah, you're right. We got him into foul trouble eventually, but it wasn't enough.
So that's kind of the story of Cincinnati. Josh, did you have anything else? You said you thought you might have this fixed.
You're mute.
We're not hearing you at all now, bro. So, all right. So where's that Josh is having technical difficulties banner? Because that's really what we need.
There it is. Right on Johnny on the spot.
All right. I think we're going to transition and pivot to football and talk a little bit of football. One thing to remember, we do have 2 big games coming up for basketball. We've got Baylor coming up. They've been great on the 3-ball. So we really, that's a place that's been a pain point for us. So we need to make sure that we're closing on those. And they're also a team that is pretty good defensively and scores a lot of points off of transition points. So I think we match up well there, but the 3-point line is going to be where we need to make sure that we're focused. So for UCF football, we've had a few more coaching changes. So, throughout the season, we've been talking about Gus and his ability to pivot, to use our frame, right, and making sure that that the standard wasn't met and it wasn't good enough. I think when Gus finally announced a lot of the changes, they've kind of been coming, and being sprinkled in slowly. When he had that press conference, I think this is the most fiery I've heard Gus. He was pissed off, to use there's no better term for it. He was angry that they were 6-7, right? And he was angry. He said, that's not good enough. I've never had a losing season. Well, you've got one now. And clearly there needed to be changes made. And, everybody talked about him not being very flexible, but clearly he cleaned house a little bit when it came to the defensive side of the ball. And, even offensively on the wide receivers front. So we brought back Tim Harris. He was at Miami. He actually was at UCF 2 seasons ago, went to Miami, brought him back. He's someone that's worked with Gus in the past, and that's kind of his MO, as he brings people back for that. Tim Harris is a very good recruiter, and he was a good recruiter for us and has those South Florida ties. So that's a positive, but I'm hoping they can help us out a little bit, or Tim can help us out a little bit when it comes to focusing on catching the ball, et cetera. Javon Baker, as good as he's been, had a 10% drop rate the past 2 seasons. So that's very high. Normally NFL receivers are more like 2 or 3%. And that's high for an NFL receiver. So a 10% drop rate is pretty high. I'm hoping, we can focus on, or like Kobe in the bowl game, where he was catching that ball and just didn't look it all the way in, right? Being able to teach those fundamentals, I'm hoping he can help the team with that. He is co-offensive coordinator. We've got 2 of them now, right? So you got Henshaw, and he'll focus on QBs, which I think Henshaw did a really, really good job of opening up our vertical passing game. And whether that was because he did that in his play design, or because he was talking about or worked well with JRP, and really he looked like a different QB, and he did take a step forward in this second season that he was back at QB. It would have been interesting to see what would have happened in the 3rd year. UCF DB coach Gibbs left for Illinois. Ben and myself and Trey are very familiar with Coach Gibbs, because someone who's been on the podcast, and the predecessor of this podcast was coached by Coach Gibbs, one Andrew Fagley. That was his defensive backs coach. One of the things that frustrated me about him, at least early on, was his propensity to not play the ball and play the body instead. And that was something that Andrew was coached on as well. The defensive backs, they left a lot of cushion. Now that was by design based on the defenses that we were playing, but it was a little frustrating. But clearly, coach decided to move on, and I think that was a good move for us as he transitions to Illinois. Trevon Reed was hired to replace Gibbs as the cornerbacks coach. He came over from Auburn. He's obviously worked with Malzahn before, was very successful. In fact, unlike the mixed results that you got from Auburn fans about Gus Malzahn leaving, everybody was pretty much boo-hooing him leaving, because he's also known as a very, very good and solid recruiter. And, Coach Malzahn basically in his presser said, he knows me, he knows my language, he knows my how I like to play, and we're in sync that way. So, hopefully that translates to the field. We talked about the strength coach, Anthony Cincy, coming in. So hopefully that'll help us, sustain throughout the season, throughout games. It seems like, I don't know if it was physicality or what, but towards the end of games in certain position groups, they just didn't stay. And then it looks like Coach Ernie Sims, one of the Sims twins, unfortunately will not. He was linebackers coach, will no longer be be here with us. He was a great recruiter. I think, honestly, part of it was just the position group and how they played, although he was left a poor hand. He came in late December of 2022, I believe. And so, when it came to recruiting the linebacker position, that was it just didn't happen because he didn't have time and he had no depth because our previous linebacker coach who went to our defensive coordinator and linebacker coach went to Arkansas. So he was really dealt with a bad hand. And I think this is just more of, having too many coaches, and he was the odd man out. I hate to see him go. But I do think we were left both on the defensive and offensive side of the ball better. And everything you've been hearing between KJ Jefferson and those conversations were had with KJ was we were setting ourselves up to win now. And, I'm glad Coach saw what we saw, wasn't happy with what we saw, expressed it, and he's trying to do something about it. So for better or for worse, he recognized what we did. Thoughts, guys?
Yeah, I think it was a much needed change just in general. Like, I think the biggest thing you brought up, and you hit the nail on the head, is that there's been kind of this notion that Coach Malzahn will not make changes. He's too stubborn in his ways and all that. And maybe we've seen that a little bit over the years. And I know a lot of Auburn fans complain about that. But look, there was clearly issues on defense. We talked about Coach Williams, Addison Williams last week, that they're, maybe he's just not, maybe a year or two away from being fully ready to be the DC. So Coach Malzahn came in and brought in a veteran defensive coordinator in Ted Roof. And now, this year, I thought, Coach Hinshaw did a pretty good job. And like you said, he was more vertical and he clearly developed JRP. But Malzahn is going all in and wants, someone that he trusts as Tim Harris Jr., someone that's been part of the program for 2 out of the first 3 years of the Malzahn era and is a very well-known South Florida recruiter, like you said, and really can coach any position on offense. He's coached running back. He's going to coach wide receiver for us. And, unfortunately, Hinshaw kind of becomes that co-OC now, but I think he sees the talent that we brought in, all these veteran guys, a lot of guys that are going to be here one and done, and is doing everything he can to make next year a conference championship year. So I think these moves seem smart. The only thing I question is, like, are there too many kind of cooks in the kitchen? We know that Gus is going to be calling plays, and then on UCF's website, Herb Hand is still listed as an OC. So we would technically have 3 OCs, 2 DCs. Seems a little bit crazy. I'm sure some of those are just by title or by name only. But overall, I think, making these changes and fixing on some of the mistakes that we lamented over all of last year is a good thing. And I think I like Tim Harris. I know how well respected he is down here in our neck of the woods in South Florida. So he was instrumental in recruiting guys like Isaiah Bowser, Mark Anthony Richards, and Xavier Townsend. So I think overall, I'm happy with these moves.
Did he recruit you, Alan, since you're in South Florida?
He tried to.
He tried to. So you're going to pull a Trey. Trey, what are your thoughts on all of this? Having been on the team and understanding coaching changes, how does that affect the players? What do you think? Is this a net positive or what?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think it's to be determined. I think a lot of the guys he's brought in, they have good history. And I think just some of the issues that we had, Gus has taken steps to kind of fix it. Will it get fixed? Again, that's why I think it's to be determined. But I like the moves. Kind of what Alan was saying. It's going to be hard because there's so many different titles. A lot of those guys, like you said, co-OC, 3. When you have 3 offensive coordinators, 2 defensive coordinators, who do you listen to? Like, those are the kind of issues that I've seen happen. Because on passing downs, this play call might be on run downs. This is what we might do. On first downs, this is what a defense might do. You don't want to have too many voices telling you what to do, because you just want to kind of, hey, let's just play. This is what we're going to run. We're going to do it, because these guys are all experienced. I don't know how they're going to mesh, but it's a good collection of guys. I think the more brain power, the better, obviously. But I think Gus is taking the steps to fix it, because, again, I think we mentioned it probably a month ago. This is year 3. We're going into year 4. it's it's time to put up or shut up at this point. And to be honest with you, and yeah, we're in the Big 12, but we need to start seeing, okay, Gus Malzahn, we want to be a national contender. It's time to start showing it. This is your now fourth year of a recruiting class. These are all your players now. There's no more excuses of, I got a bad hand, things like that. But yeah, like I think that's just, and I think he feels it, and I think that's why you said he was pissed that he was 6-7. I think it's a little bit about that. So yeah, I mean, I like the moves. I know Coach Roof. He recruited me out of high school. He actually went to college with my aunt, so I know him very well from just recruiting. But he's a good coach, and I think it might be what those guys need. So we'll see. It'll be two.
He's more hard nosed, and that certainly had a.
Oh yeah, he's a player's coach, but he's not a pushover. He's gonna lay you out if he needs to.
Yeah, and he's also a linebackers coach, which might have contributed to the Ernie Sims exit, right? But I don't think there's any doubt that Ted Roof is the defensive coordinator, right?
1,000%.
And by that I mean he's gonna call the plays. He's going to do all the things that you would expect from a defensive coordinator. Yeah. And offensively, it's Gus Malzahn. Herb Hand will be there to listen to him on situational stuff and that kind of stuff. But Gus is going to be gussing it. So anybody who
all year that he was really calling the plays. Roger, you were saying Henshaw all year, but it was pretty much Gus.
Well, it was 5-6 games in, they kind of switched over. So
and I think because of that, like coaches feel pressure. Like, when your seat starts getting hot. I don't know. I'm not going to say Gus's seat's getting hot, but it's getting uncomfortable. I know he's not feeling, I feel good where we're at. We can keep progressing. He's not feeling like that. Because again, we're going into year 4. It's time. Like, it's time to put this thing together. I think that's another reason, we kind of went after KJ Jefferson. We were talking all year, Timmy's a great player. A year in the system. This is his second year. Going into year 3, he'll be good. I don't think they have that time anymore. Like, I don't think we can kind of experiment. We need a guy who has performed, that Gus is comfortable with, that he can, hey, if this is the last season, we're going out with a bang, and I think that's where the moves kind of show the hand a little bit.
I think honestly, I think them getting KJ kind of pushed their timeline up. It's more like, hey, we didn't know we were going to get somebody like KJ, but this is a 1 year. There were some promises made and discussions had on how you're going to support me to get through this. And I think getting KJ, that's, hey, we need to win now because we only have 1 year. And this is a top level talent at QB that can push our offense forward. We've got running backs.
And look who we brought back. Yeah, I mean, I didn't think RJ Harvey was coming back.
None of us did.
Like, we're bringing back studs. So this drop, that's like, again, you can't have a drop-off. It'd be different if we're trotting out, freshmen and sophomores. You can kind of get away with maybe a Timmy, but you're bringing R.J. Harvey back. You're bringing Kobe Hudson back. You're bringing Xavier Townsend back. You're bringing some four-star freshmen in to play. Like, this isn't a rebuild. It's going to be a quick rebuild. It's a retool almost. So and it's year 4. Again, it's year 4. It's time, especially in this kind of era we're in the Big 12 and just football in general. Everybody wants it now. It's year 4. It's time to start, performing.
So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, so it's not a rebuild.
It's a retool.
It's a retool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like it's the frustration and like the fiery attitude that you saw at Gus Malzahn in that press conference. I don't think any of it was him like feeling like his seat is hot. I think it's what you were really talking about there. Like, I feel like his expectations are year 4, we're ready to go. And I also feel like some of the things that we're seeing out of his attitude was, and we talked about it before when it happened after the bowl game, Gus has never had a losing record as a head coach. And he's probably just a little upset about that.
Yeah.
And that's what you saw. I mean, it's unacceptable for Gus Malzahn. I mean, we all want to talk about certain things are unacceptable that we see on the football field, as fans. But you better believe that in those meeting rooms and just where he's reflecting on the season in general, like, he understands that it's unacceptable, and that's what he expressed in the press conference. And so I think a lot of these moves were, it's funny because it's like you see so many of these moves, and it's almost like, wow, this feels like reactionary. But I think I think the way he made the moves, I mean, like keeping Addison Williams, like and bringing in a guy like Roof, I mean, it's like that's a really like clever and like, you know, that's a veteran move, you know, like to be able to keep. I think it shows a lot of things. I think it. And you see some of these coaches coming back. They want to play. They want to coach with Malzahn again, and they've done it in their career. I think that also shows, like the Addison Williams move, like shows that, you know, he's like that with everybody that coaches underneath him. I mean, I talked about it on this podcast where Addison Williams, like, was he ready for that promotion? We all know he's a great recruiter, but we definitely saw some deficiencies as far as, I mean, you guys can see it better than me, but like the positioning on defense and, you know, some of our opportunities lost in certain games. I mean, what a kind of like savvy way to keep him in the fold as a recruiter, keep him involved on what he needs to concentrate on and focus on, but bring in a veteran guy like Roof that there's no doubt who's running the offense.
I think he still believes in him too. I think he 100%. I think it's just, you know, I think he thinks he needs seasoning, and I think if anything, that should be a compliment to Addison Williams, right? To say, hey,
I
look,
think, like you said, it's the perfect compliment because Coach Roof's not a young cat. He's
right.
He's an older guy. He has a lot of experience, so it's not like he's just like, Addison, you're done. He's like, hey, it's obvious there's things you need to work on. Here's a guy. We're gonna let him do a little of those things that you might not be as great in, but he's still gonna have a role, as you mentioned. Right. And it's just, you know, hey, you can kind of put two minds together.
And on the offensive side of the ball, I mean, Brandon has said a lot on Twitter, you know, this week and the dungeon. It's just, I mean, KJ Jefferson came to UCF apparently amongst many other things, I'm sure. You know, he came to UCF to run Gus Malzahn's offense, and so. I think with that fact kind of started to trickle out there was, you know, kind of no hiding the fact that after game 6 or 7 last year that he was actually calling the plays, and he will do that moving forward. I think it's fascinating because I just feel like regardless of how long he's done it, the way that college football is nowadays with everything that we talk about every week as far as NIL and transfer portal and blah, blah, blah. It's just fascinating to me that a guy like Malzahn is still wanting to take that part on, that nitty-gritty detail that you need to be so locked in on. It just shows what type of mind he is, I think.
Yeah. He's, you know, starting from the high school ranks, he's a teacher. He at the core of it, he's a teacher. And to me, this is like an elevated way of teaching. He's teaching someone he believes in, that I'm going to find you someone to help you and grow because I know where you can go with me and probably beyond this when you go elsewhere, right? So to me, this is a we use that word a lot. It is savvy, but to me, it's a really good business move. It's like a CEO knowing that they have a rising star, wanting them to continue to rise, helping while they're there, and realizing at some point someone's going to pay you a lot more money to not be in this company anymore. So I really feel like that is kind of what's going on here too. And I will say, just since we're talking about, when we were going to school, to me, I'm really hoping that Cincy is going to be like when George O'Leary hired Ed Ellis. When Ed Ellis got here, the football team changed physically, and right. And with O'Leary too, I'm really hoping that change in the strength and conditioning is going to affect everything else, because that Trey knows more than I do, but that change, any change like that, can make a very deep change to the entire team. So,
I mean, we spend the most time, arguably, with our weight coaches. I mean, to be honest with you, it's all spring. It's all spring. It's all summer. even during the season, we have many weight sessions, whether they're stretch, whether they're just light lifts. We spend almost every day with them.
It's also because there's no restrictions, right? There's no
yeah.
You can always be with the weight coaches, so you know that you're always spending time with them.
We don't have to be working out. We can just go in the weight room and just lay down and talk.
Right.
Like that's just who we talk to. So I agree, Josh. Those guys are arguably some of the most important people. Not just what you're doing in the weight room, but just everyday stuff, because they kind of do set the tone. They set the tone for what you want to be as football players. I know Coach Ellis is real. He was very old school, rough. Like, you're going to be big, strong. Like, I think that was the strongest I was. Whereas, Coach Duval was more, we want you to be explosive. We want you to be fast and be able to move weight fast, because that's how you play. So, like, it changes with the coaches, with the style.
Well, and that was different philosophies too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, when you're talking about scheme, and when you're talking about how many plays you're going to be playing, and all that other fun stuff. Are you focused on turnovers? Are you focused on run stop? Are you focused on, whatever it is?
All tied in. All of it is
tied in.
Yeah.
100%. All right. So anything else on the coaching changes? Alan, anybody else?
No, I mean, it was a pretty big switch up, but I mean, I think we went over all of them. DB coach, obviously Ernie Sims. So I think that was you went over the new cornerback coach from Auburn, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, then I think we went over all of them.
All right. So Alan is keeping us on track. We've got all the check marks. So a couple of things that additional things that we kind of wanted to mention. Friday Night Lights, this year's Friday Night Lights happened this past weekend. It's a big recruiting event for future folks. We had a lot of existing guys that are recruits that have committed to us that were on campus for the event. We also had a lot of 2025 and 2026 recruits that were there, and a lot of good feedback. They do a really good job with this recruiting event. So one of the things, obviously, they've got the fancy cars. Thank you to Falcon Motor Group for providing the cars. I'm really on that yellow Mozzie. If I had the choice between the two, I know the other car was faster, but give me that yellow Mozzie. That's the only Maserati I've seen that I liked, and that one was a fire-looking car. But they also did laser tag in the stadium. So they set up laser tag in the stadium, turned down the lights, and a lot of the recruits were impressed. This no matter what you think about what's going on the field, our recruiting game has stepped up exponentially to the point that it is even sky high. As Gus Malzahn, as soon as Nick Saban retired, decided to tell guys to get in the chopper and fly around, Arnold style, and visited Cocoa, visited some of the Brevard County schools, and then some other schools around from a helicopter.
Newberry, it was he went all over the place. He's in, like, up near Gainesville too. It was great.
That was the first time that I think a UCF coach has landed on a football field in a helicopter, but Gus has done it, and that was exciting to see. And really, to me, that was like a we made it kind of moment, right? We were all in awe. What was it, 4 or 5 years ago when Nick Saban started doing that, right? Now, all of a sudden, UCF
was doing that when I was in high school.
Oh, really?
Nick Saban, I'll never forget. I was like a sophomore. He landed. We had a big turf field. He landed his helicopter in the middle and walked down. It was like, it looked like he was glowing when he was walking down. It didn't look real. Like, he's like Gus. I'll give it to Gus Malzahn. He can recruit. Even my coaches now, they talk about, like, UCF, 10 years ago, the image was different. How they looked at UCF was very different the way it is now. Like, now kids want to come to UCF. They want to visit UCF. They want to see it. That wasn't necessarily, it was harder to get us on campus. And I've talked to you about it, Roger. Like, really the only thing that's holding us back is the NIL, just not being able to compete, which, that's a part of it. But other than that, kids want to come. They see Orlando, they see how much fun it is. They see, Coach Malzahn, they're selling them. And I think that's the best thing we can do is when you have those top-notch elite level recruiters.
Yep. And then something else to be excited about for football this week. Tomorrow, the Big 12 schedule will be dropping. So the football schedule, you guys will hear this probably after it drops. So I don't even know why I'm saying that. But you will see the football schedule, and it will have been dropped tomorrow, which we're recording this on the 29th. So you'll see it on the 30th. So that's exciting to see and finalize and lock in that schedule. Now, one of the reasons you should be a shareholder is that schedule got leaked to some of the shareholders a little bit earlier. So they were able to book their flights and hotel rooms before you were. So I'm just saying, if you can drop the money because you'll save money on the flights and the hotel rooms before they go up.
It's an investment.
That's an investment. Or you just do what what some people do, which is just go ahead and book all of the hotel rooms and flights for each one of the weekends and cancel the ones you don't end up using. So I know some people that did that too. So, I don't think I want to drop that on flights, but the better option is just to go ahead and become a shareholder and sit in on those meetings and get that early. All right. Real quick, we're coming up on 150, so I don't want to go too long on this. But Trey, so UCF Re-Education, I kind of want to talk a little bit about your time with Shaquem Griffin and kind of share a few things about his time staying in the Wayne Densch Center prior to that 2017 run. So if you'll tell us, hey, was he smelly because he wasn't hitting the showers? I mean, did he have an inflatable mattress? Did he have his binky with him? What was going on in the Wayne Densch as he prepared for the season?
Yeah, I mean, I remember right before camp, people don't know camp is from early August, maybe late July, all the way till school starts really probably a week before the first game. It's probably around a month. And he was just like, hey, instead of, wasting an hour of travel each there and back, why don't I just sleep at the Densch? I'm going to get a blow-up mattress. He put it right in the defensive meeting room. Blow-up mattress, him and Deidreon Bacote, who Bam Bam, both of them stayed there. Yep, they stayed there all night. Luckily, they didn't smell bad because, again, we have a shower, so they could shower all day, every day as much as they wanted. But yeah, I mean, he just kind of dedicated. And I think those kind of things set the tone about, when you're a leader, everybody looks at you, whether you think they're looking at you or not. In Shaquem's case, everybody was looking at him always. So, just him being able to do that and show the dedication, because we'd meet all day, all night. Then he stays there and we're like, he's sitting here watching film and they'd watch movies and TVs and stuff, but he's getting an extra hour on us. So now guys are starting to come in earlier. Guys might try to stay a little bit later, and I think that kind of positivity kind of catapults you to take you to the next level you want to be. He did it, because he wanted to win, but he also wanted to be, great himself. He knew with his disadvantage, you have to make up with that by being able to watch a lot of film, by being, taking care of your body. He was the first one, to get taped, first one to get treatment, first one on the field because he's there already, and I think, that's the kind of leadership that we had that year that, it's a funny story, but it marinates throughout the whole team when you see that. And I think that's, that's what made Shaquem great. He was a guy's guy, as popular and as, famous as he is now, he's still, we play video games all the time and he's still a guy's guy. He's always been that way. So yeah, I mean, it was crazy just, again, because I couldn't sleep on an air mattress for 30 days. I'm sorry. You can call me bougie. You can say, all of that. I can't do it just because it's not comfortable to me, and I'll drive my.
So what else did they have in there? I mean, did they have access to the the power bars and
yeah. So they would So during
were they really roughing it other than the air mattress?
Oh yeah, they were roughing it, man, because they weren't leaving. Shaquem had his car was at his apartment, so he didn't bring it anywhere. He didn't go out. I think a lot of because Towers is right next to Towers is right next. So
Yeah.
during the day, he couldn't stay there during the day because there were still some like women's soccer. They were still there working out. So he couldn't be in there while they're doing stuff. So he'd go to the Towers, hang out with some of the guys.
Is that like a rule that he couldn't be there while they were working out?
No, he could, but it's more just courtesy. Like you don't want to be, while they're working out and doing stuff, and because they take up everything, just kind of bothering them in a sense. I'm sure they wouldn't care, but just kind of common courtesy. But yeah, he was rocking out, man. Granola bars. He packed up. We had a big thing of chocolate milk in the freezer. I mean, he was drinking chocolate milk faithfully. So I mean, it was just, again, he's better than me. There's no way I could do that without, I can do it. I just not with the blow up matches. That's where you kind of lose me because I can't do that for 3 days.
So I'll say this for all you students out there, right? That's the kind of dedication that you need to be able to make it through finals week. And this just in, Houston caught back up and won in overtime against Texas. Wow. So I don't know how I feel about that. So I'll say 2 things. Horns down. Horns down. That's going to be a thing every time that Texas is down for me. Secondly, I was kind of hoping they'd win just because Houston, beat us so bad. But that's the kind of team, if you can win in those kind of games and come back and win an OT, that's the kind of drive that you want your team to have, and that's going to be a successful program in the tournament. So hopefully there are some tourney credits. All right, I guess we'll pivot away from that. Thank you, Trey, for sharing that with everyone. That was something that was unique and made a lot of headlines. And to your point, leadership on the and off the field. Kind of like Gabe Davis when he would do 1,000 catches.
Yeah, man.
With the
he was doing that as a true freshman. He's again, those kind of guys, man. I thought I worked extremely hard. Those guys are like next level. And you see that kind of stuff, like that's a pro. Like those guys were pros. And that's why they made it as far as they did, because just something inside of them is just, they're never satisfied. And I thought I was never satisfied, but there's just something about them never satisfied. I mean, Gabe was 17, 18 years old doing that.
Driving his minivan.
Driving that minivan. Goodness gracious of life. I can't tell you how many times we had to fix that thing up, man. It was ridiculous.
I mean, can you imagine that in the NIL era? He'd still be driving that minivan and saving his pennies instead of the Hellcat. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Let's go ahead and move on to Alan's Oxymoronic stat of the week. Alan, do you have a stat for us this week, sir?
I do. I just have a just small stat about UCS defense. So
is this another depressing stat of the week?
No, this is actually I went positive. I went positive.
Yeah. That's the oxymoronic part.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously we know how well our defense has been playing over the past, really since conference play started. And even though we've taken some L's in recent games, I went and looked really how our defense has been from a scoring perspective, how the point total that we've been keeping teams to, and looking how it compares to the rest of the conference when they play other opponents. So as of now, every single opponent we've faced outside of Kansas State, we've held them to either their first or second lowest point output for the entire conference season. So BYU and Kansas, we actually still have them to their lowest point total of the season. And then Texas, Houston, West Virginia, and Cincy, all their second lowest scoring output.
Is Houston the first?
What was that?
Is Houston the first? For those other teams, like their lowest scoring output were those against Houston?
Oh, that's a good question. I didn't look at that far, but I'll have to do that.
All right, we'll come back to that. Josh, we're gonna bring you up next. Josh's sometimes funny fact of the week.
So I made a executive decision today. We had Coach Wallace on earlier.
I'm to mute.
What?
Just keep going. I was making a joke.
Oh, okay.
Because you made an executive decision, so I was going to mute you.
That's very funny. So Coach Wallace was on earlier, and he was talking about how Jay Bergman loved triples, right? So I had something for road wins and things in basketball, but that was interesting to me because someone, I think it was you, Roger, said triples are actually harder to get than home runs. That made me think, how much far harder? So he talked about triples. Let's do an over-under for the team. The all-time Major League Baseball leader in triples has 250 of them. Do you think that the real statistic is over or under?
Over.
I'm going to go over.
I'm going to go under.
Under.
So I did a little research. Thank you, Baseball Reference. The history of triples is amazing. It really is. The current leader in Major League Baseball is ranked 486. That's Charlie Blackmon in triples with 63. In the history of Major League Baseball since 1896 or whatever, only 3 people have gotten above 250 triples. Honus Wagner, Ty Cobb, and Sam Crawford. Triples are just not as much of a thing anymore. And if you start looking down the list of the triples leaders, it's like everyone who's on a multi-million-dollar baseball card. And thinking about home run leaders, like there's multiple above 700 from Babe Ruth to Henry Aaron to Barry Bonds. So triples are harder, and I didn't realize how much harder in the history of Major League Baseball they really are.
Oh, well, yeah, because you got to run. Like, I mean, you got to be able to. You not only got to be able to hit to a corner of the field, and hit that hard line drive to be able to give yourself a chance, but you have to have a first to third mentality that like nobody else has on that baseball field.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you,
if you hit that ball, you're like, I'm getting a triple. Like it's not, I get a double, then I can get a triple. No, it's I'm getting a triple off the bat.
That's a very small spot that you have to be able to hit to. And if you fly it out, and that was kind of the point I was trying to make and didn't make it very well when Coach Wallace was on.
Yeah, you have to get hard to the corner.
Yeah, hard to the corner. Otherwise, you're going to fly out because these outfielders now they're usually some of the fastest guys on the team, and they will cover that distance.
Yeah. And most of the time, I mean, it's just like, I mean, it's similar to safety. It's so much easier to track a ball going forward than it is backwards. So if we're playing deep, you're going to have to hit it hard down the line because you can't really get a triple in the gap unless they're just shifted crazy because you just take the right angle.
Or you just get it over their glove and it hits off the wall somewhere.
Yeah, like it has to be something.
It's got to be a weird thing.
Yeah, but like other than that, you have to hit it down the line and like you said, you have to dig from the second it hits the bat. You're like, I'm getting 3. I'd rather get thrown out at third, but I'm gonna be at third whether I'm safe or I'm out. Like that's the mentality of it.
So I don't know how much you guys follow Major League Baseball, but if anybody active player, in my opinion, that has a shot at challenging that, being the 4th on that list, Josh, is Elly De La Cruz. For the Cincinnati Reds, if he stays healthy throughout his career, I think he's going to be amongst that list because he has that mentality. He is not satisfied with a base hit single. He is trying to leg out every type of extra base. So Elly De La Cruz is one of those guys.
So I will say this too, just for everybody who's listening, Henry Aaron is Hank Aaron. So anybody.
And Elly De La Cruz, Ben, is, I mean, he's tall. He's not as tall as you, obviously, but he's I think he's like 6'5" playing baseball. So
he's somewhere in the 6'5", 6'6" range.
Once he starts going, he can cover some ground quick. So.
No doubt. He's like,
so Ben, with your strides, do you think you're as fast as Elly De La Cruz?
No, I run like a baby giraffe with a broken leg, man. I don't have the stride that Elly De La Cruz does. Never had it. But yeah,
he only needs like 302 more. So I mean,
this is his first full season. So,
no, I know, and that's why I'm saying this is an insane thing. Like Charlie Blackmon has 63 in like 13 years of play or something like that. Yeah. Sam Crawford did it in 19, has 300 and not like it's just an amazing. Like I knew triples are hard. And I knew there weren't going to be like 700 triples. It wasn't like a Barry Bonds or Henry Aaron. Everyone should know who that is. But 300 and like
I don't think anybody ever says Henry Aaron. They all say Hank Aaron.
That's fine.
He's a baseball purist, Roger. All right, you know, Josh.
But at the end of the day, it's just like
Aaron.
Mind-blowing how H. It's mind-blowing how few triples people are actually getting, and how that stat is just like no one in anywhere who isn't retired is anywhere close to the top. Like usually it's baseball.
And the mentality of the league today is, and not to go too much longer on it, but the mentality of the league today is strikeout or home run. So, I mean, you just don't have those guys with that same mentality, because it's just different. But with the exception of the guy that I mentioned, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Literally, he's the only one.
Yeah.
All right. So other than H. Aaron, let's go ahead and move on to we're going to bring Josh Lazar back as always. He is, last but not least, but always last. Give us a quick update on UCF Sports.
Oh, so the UCF women's basketball team, they won their first conference win, OT win over Houston.
Does that count because it's Houston?
Yes, it does, because they're in the Big 12 too. But the TCU, let's just talk a minute about the TCU game. So after
because I was really frustrated. I watched that game.
Me too. After the West Virginia game, walking out, a couple of people were actually talking about it, looking at my phone before getting to my car. I'm like, oh, we're doing well. We might actually win. And knowing that they lost, they only had 7 scholarship players. The end of that game, they did well, but the end of that game was just kind of what we have seen for the women's team often until the Houston game. It's just doing well or can't get over the top, and just kind of literally turned it over and lost the game. So, the women's team, I still think they're going to take some steps and keep growing. I'm really excited for next year, and let's see what happens the rest of this year and in the tournament. And we play West Virginia next. The men's tennis team sweeps Florida Gulf Coast 7-0. Men's tennis doing really well. Women's tennis was doing really well. That 23-ranked team lost to Illinois 4-3. Close, tight game, and I'm feeling we'll get over that loss soon, I hope. We also had a softball fan fest this past weekend. There was a dinner that happened, and so a lot of conversations coming from that too. So that was what was going on last week in UCF Sports. That wasn't basketball or football.
Yeah. So that was, the softball fan fest again, and then Coach talking to Coach Wallace and him gracing us with his presence. It just goes to show more sports are on the way. It's not over. It's moving quickly, and I'm super excited about that. Ben, you had a quick comment.
Since we said Fan Fest, I just want to make sure Rich didn't get a chance to say it, but February 10th is the baseball Fan Fest. So let's it's honestly my son has a basketball game and we can't make it this year, and that really is a shame. And because honestly, as a family, it is probably one of our top 5 favorite events, UCF events of the season. It's just so much fun. So 2 to 4, a little shortened schedule a little bit this year, but Baseball Fan Fest is a great time. So come on out to the John for that.
All right, awesome. I still can't get over the fact that it's called the John, but we're gonna leave that at that. Thankfully, John Giuliano stepped up big time and helped us expand. And there's more. There's more. Improvements that are due to start after the season this season. So more to look forward to at John Giuliano Park. So make sure that you check that out. All right. It's been a great episode. We're at 2:08. We're getting you guys out of here early, but I think you got a lot of solid content, and again, big ups and thanks to Coach Wallace. It's funny because we talked off air about some memories that we all had, because we were Ben, myself, and Josh were all there at the same time as Coach Wallace was. And just thankful that he's here. I think he's got more than a shot, and I think he's going to do really, really well. He's got all the tools, and he bleeds black and gold as much as any of us on this podcast. So looking forward to continuing to watch that team develop. And just thank everybody for following along with us. So make sure to like, follow, subscribe, recommend, tell us we're doing terribly. Whatever you want to do, all of it will help us move forward. With all that being said, go Knights and
charge on. Okay, right, here we go. We got a real pressure cooker going here. 2 down, nobody on, no score, bottom of the ninth. There's a windup